tuned to the Art of Sunday. My name is Brenda Sisane. This is Kaya FM, home of the Afropolitan. And, in fact, this is the first year of the Jozi Film Festival. And I believe that it starts on a very high note indeed, particularly with movies such as Mandela's Gun being part of the slate of films they're going to be showing. This is a great achievement on their behalf. For us here at Kaya FM, it's a very exciting time for many reasons, including the fact that this could have been 2 interviews with 2 wonderful individuals who are doing great work out there, and we get the pleasure of doing 1 interview in all of these. I have in the studio with me John Irvin as well as Abdullah Ibrahim, and both of them have contributed, and it makes sense. I guess you've heard the names before, exactly what roles they play. Welcome to Kai FM. It's wonderful to have you.
Great pleasure.
Thank you. It's Mandela's Gun. It catches me as a title immediately, and my interest is, because we've always seen after his release, we never saw the military man. We saw this leader and this sage. And the question for me then is it really about the gun, or is it a bigger story than the gun?
You're right. When Mandela came out of prison, he said, "Throw away the guns. They don't work." So that is true. But our story takes place in 1960, mostly 1962. And in 1962, he was appointed Commander-in-Chief of Spirit of the Nation, MK. And his duty was, and his mission was to raise an army, train an army, and go and promote armed struggle. Because negotiations were not part of the nationalist scenario, as you know. I mean, so we're looking at a very determined, a very committed revolutionary who leaves the country illegally and sets out on an odyssey throughout Africa, raising money, looking for training grounds, looking for support, putting the ANC in front of its rivals, winning friends, and he sets out. And we tell the part of the story which takes place mostly in Algeria and Ethiopia, where he was given military training and learnt the arts of sabotage and other other stuff. So I mean, he's closer in some respects, I suppose, at that time to a model of Che Guevara and others. He studied when he on this tour many books on armed uprisings and revolutions and covert warfare.
We're speaking to John Irvin, and of course Abdullah Ibrahim joins him in the studio. We're talking Mandela's Gun. It is a premiere here at the Jozi Film Festival, and also we're just asking questions about this film because there has been a number of films about Mandela, but this one sounds like it's one that takes us to the genesis of the man in terms of just how he walked into the freedom struggle and larger than life, tall and everything else that he was a man who took up the armed struggle, but sort of stymied at some point. And this is the story that you tell, after his arrest, and this is the story that you're trying to tell. Can I just ask, it as you say, it took you to many countries, but how did it take you to many countries? Because this is a docudrama. How did you then weave this story and shape that?
I recreated from the record many of the events. I did original research with the help of some very hard-working and enlightened academics, and we discovered quite a lot that hadn't been, which was little known, the untold story. For instance, in Ethiopia, in Addis, I was introduced to a man who was a bodyguard, Mandela's bodyguard, who was commissioned by a Western power to kill him. And he's still alive. So I was able to get witnesses and testimony and interweave that with my recreation of that period. So what I decided to do was, so it was quite clear to the audience, I would film the drama. And it's like a political thriller. I mean, this man is being watched.
This
and and his life was, very much in jeopardy. It was dangerous, and the Western powers felt that he was a major, major threat. And in fact, we have a former CIA man saying he was the most dangerous communist leader living outside or operating outside the Soviet Union. So what we do is provide the context in which he was training. I mean, there was the belief was, without doubt, that it was the last resort, and I think they came to it reluctantly, that the only answer to the intransigence of the National Government was a resort to arms. But it was a selective violence. It wasn't random. It wasn't terror, but it was definitely a warning, and it was
yes,
and it was controversial within the ANC. It wasn't it was, and it probably still is in some respects.
Wow. I'm listening to you talk, and all I can imagine is that, at this point in time, we need to be going back in time as a country in reflection, just because, to remember, all of that went into what we call a struggle or the history of oppression, because we got these phrases that we use when we refer to the past and what has happened, as opposed to the reality of it. So what I like about the approach and the way the film is designed is that it's almost happening in real time, because new information is coming up with this research that you're doing, and as you go along and reenacting, therefore it's wonderful, I think.
And yes, we're the commentary
yes.
Of the of witnesses, testimony from people who were present, and they are eloquent, they're authoritative, and they're shot in colour, by the way. So there is a contrast.
Something fresh about
between the black and white recreation. Okay. I should say, you asked me about Mandela's gun. The gun was a present given to Mandela by Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia. It was a present he was given. I suspect, I don't have the evidence, but I suspect it was given to him after the assassination attempt. Sure. For his protection, and it's a handgun, which is very, very, very effective. But it's a Russian weapon, and there's a mystery about that too. But it was buried at Liliesleaf when he came back, because obviously to be caught carrying a gun would have automatically
absolutely
the death sentence would have been mandatory, automatic. So it was buried, and then when Mandela came out of prison, he said to a friend, Alistair Sparks, they went up to Liliesleaf, and he said to Alistair, has anyone found my pistol?
Ooh.
And he said, what pistol? Would anything about that? He said, I buried it here 12 paces from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's here. It's buried. So I heard about this weapon with my producer, Claire Evans. I heard about it when I was at a dinner, a fundraiser for Liliesleaf, in the High Commission, South African High Commission in London. And Joel Joffe turned to Claire and said, do you know the story of Mandela's gun? And we said, no, but go on. And we had some contacts that we thought could be helpful. So we came here and we started looking for it. We didn't find it, but in the process of looking for it, that was the original film. It was a search, a quest. But after some time, I said, we're not going to find it. Perhaps it's better if we don't find it. But I think there's a story here somewhere which hasn't been told. Let's go to Addis Ababa and find out a bit more. So we went to Addis, and with some help from friends here, there was a radio program, broadcast across the land, asking for people to come forward if they had any memories of Mandela in Ethiopia.
Wow. And
we gave a press conference when we got there, and suddenly we were, inundated with offers of help. offers and people came forward. I was a bodyguard. I was an interpreter, so on and so forth. So we started to put things together, and came back with pretty much a scoop, I think. I mean, there were rumours of assassination attempts, but to actually find a man who had been commissioned to do it, I thought was pretty good stuff. As a storyteller, I thought, whoa. So I came back and discussed it, or we came back, discussed it with the Minister of Arts and Culture, and he found it pretty shocking. And there was some investigations and all sorts of good things, actually, including a treaty, cultural exchanges, so on and so forth were agreed. It's good things came out of it.
Good things came out, absolutely.
Yeah. And also, of course, the film suddenly became much bigger. So it's if you've been to Ethiopia, then if you want to tell the story of Mandela at that time, as a revolutionary, committed, then you must go to Algiers, because he always said Algiers was where I was. That's where I was. Really educated, informed, and where I became a man.
Fantastic. I love that quote, in fact, where he says that's where he became a man. You turn to the Art of Sunday. This is Kaya FM, home of the Afropolitan. And of course, we're excited about the Jozi Film Festival, which is opening with a bang, in fact, in one of the biggest stories that you can tell about South Africa and its political struggle. And of course, this film also comes with something that is gifted to African people, or all peoples of the world, in fact. But the music side of it also tells a big story. And today we talk to, as part of the team that is involved in this film, we talked to Abdullah Ibrahim, and of course known also for a number of movie soundtracks that you've worked on. Welcome again. It's good to have you. After hearing John painting this amazing story, I'm thinking to myself, whoa, what it meant for you to be composing the music and making the music match what the story is trying to tell, if anything, and I'm just wondering in my mind what happened, in through your creative process in designing the sound for this one.
Oh, when John approached me, I said yes.
Yes.
Because it was, it is something dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably dear to the hearts of all South Africans. Mm. I think it's also dear to the heart of people everywhere in the world. This narrative. And it's precisely because we did not know the full picture. Mm. And when John asked me to do the music, I asked to see some of the rushes.
Yes.
And the first time he showed it to me, when the clip finished, it took me about half an hour to respond, because it was very powerful. In fact, the film is very, very powerful. I said to John, after I looked at the clip, I said I would love to do this, and I am Mandela.
Yes.
This is what I felt within myself, because I think we all are Mandela.
Yes.
Because there comes a point in your life when you, what would I have done in Mandela's position or shoes? Faced with this horrific things that occurred in our lives here in South Africa. And as John said, when I came on board about 2 years ago, but the filming has been going on for about 5 years now. And every time when John discovered something new, like the in Addis Ababa, mm-hmm. actually interviewing the man who was given a gun to assassinate Mandela, it said to us, But this, what we have been going through here and what we're still going through is a wider picture, you see, than just our resistance. I met John. It was fantastic because we gelled immediately because he's a jazz lover. He knows the music very, very well. He knows the music, its history. He knows the musicians.
Yes.
So the first time we met, we spoke about Ellington and Monk. I said, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I would love to do this.
Okay.
I might just butt in. One aspect of our collaboration, which I was very keen to state up front, was that I thought we would the score would be improvised to the picture. Like, so it's not often done. So there isn't a written score. There weren't sort of boundaries. So we chose scenes that we felt would be enhanced by music.
Sure.
And then Abdullah improvised around it. Much it hadn't been. I mean, the idea came to me. It wasn't an original idea. It came to me because I knew that Miles Davis had done this with A Lift to the Scaffold, Louis Malle's film, as considered one of the greatest film scores ever made. So I thought we'd give him a run for his money.
Well, I think he has survived all of that. Yeah.
The oldest, I'm sorry.
No.
John said about improvisation. We're improvisers, right?
Yeah.
In our life, in the music. Because improvisation deals with this urgent moment of now. So when John said to me, we should improvise on the score, get my musicians from New York, the musicians who work with me, they're all incredible, great improvisers. And so. They're also we're all well schooled.
Yes.
So it occurred to me that the Mandela story is a narrative that happened in the past. We are experiencing his narrative now in the present, which is very, very crucial at this moment in time for us in South Africa, and then projecting into the future. So the improvisation idea links the past, the present, and the future. Thank you, John.
True. Certainly, I think the film, although it is history, is very, very timely and very, very, very necessary at this time. It's there are lessons in this film for the present. I mean, I can see, and particularly in Europe and America, there's some very ugly moods. Yeah. There are some very ugly things happening, and I think we can't be complacent. We can't be. The revolution is unfinished.
In fact, you're thinking it's starting. I was asking myself, is it a continuous spiral? Just to join what in terms of what you were saying, and the young people are looking for this leadership. And when you talk about how special this is, I'm going to come back and talk about, somebody like me, as in the street, I imagine a soundtrack to be, as you say, you watch the rushes, you write to it, and so I'm loving the fact that this is not even the treatment of the music itself comes from an important consideration of how it will add to the story, and of course brings some amazing talent, into the mix. But I'm interested in I love, for example, the fact that the film is going to, for the first showing, go to Lily's Leaf. So I understand really the impact of all of that, you know. And my next question becomes, as the Josie Film Festival is rolling itself out, I'm thinking, where are the young people to see this? Because for us, Mandela was somebody we saw in coming out of prison, and the fist is out there and everybody's jubilant and the rest of the world embraces us. And that's literally the past 22 years. Never went back to say who was he, which means therefore who were we and who are we going forward. You know, it gives me, for me, I see it as an occasion to stop and you know and look at these pictures and remind ourselves, you know. So is there a plan to take this movie to young people to get it studied and all other things, you know?
Certainly. When we started out, we were considering making an abridged version of the film to put into schools and give to the schools. It's something we discussed with McClanty. And we have, there are interviews in the film, but they're very short, so they're there really to prompt the action. But of the, you know, dozens of people I did interview, not all of them in the film, but there is an archive now, about 30 hours of interview material, which can't possibly be in the film, but it's there, and there is a plan to organize it, edit it into a schools program.
Fantastic.
And again, we are donating all the tapes to the archive at Lily's Leaf. But there is a scheme. We haven't started it yet, but we've discussed it, but we haven't physically got down to it, to perhaps make a different kind of television series, not a recreation, but a very well argued series about that period with as I say, eyewitness testimony.
Yes.
And you know, we haven't got much time.
Yes,
We've got to keep going.
We've got to keep going. Right?
But there are a lot of riches to be mined.
Okay. I'm falling in love with this project by the minute, in fact. Thank you so much for having joined us on Kaya FM, home of the Afropolitan. We're talking about Mandela's Gun, and we're talking to John Irvin and Abdullah Ibrahim. I'd like to come back to the fact that, you know, the person behind the soundtrack, you are part of the struggle. You leave the country because of the political environment. You write music from your heart because of the experiences that you're going through. Being in this movie right now and watching this story being told has made you probably go to other places as well, in terms of maybe asking, you know, this heritage, the contribution that you know that you've made through music, because all of it is intertwined. If anything, I just wanted to find out what this was like for you.
Well, I think it's with the music, we always look at how we pass on the knowledge that we have.
Yes.
You know, and the timeline, pass it on to the next generation. This is in jazz music here, a must. As the music develops, as one musician who discovers another way, and then it never stops. It's an ongoing process of how to express yourself. See, jazz music is a very unique situation, because what you actually do is you take a situation, you take a song, and you study it intensely inside out. Melody line, the harmonics, the rhythmic patterns, and you study all variations of it. Sometimes it takes years. But once you grasp that, then you're free to improvise, because you have no more fear. See? It's that knowledge, that intrinsic knowledge that you have gathered, that gives you this possibility to improvise without fear. John's product, this Mandela's Gun, I think it gives a lot of incentive to young people to tell our stories. No? Well, I've been researching our history, my business, I think, for the last 60, 70 years. History of the Cape, the history of... I lived everywhere in South Africa. Every township in South Africa. And so I absorbed all of these cultures. But the narratives that are there is untold. And I think for young people, maybe like I say, Mandela's Gun, the film, is perhaps a finger that points towards what can be done, or what should be done, in order to tell a narrative. And it, for example, like archival material. We don't know our country. We don't know our country. We started a little program in this regard. The history of the Cape, the history of the Northern Cape going into Namibia and Botswana, and what went on, what exactly occurred there over the centuries.
I would say, I think, add to that, the story is factual. I haven't played fast and loose with what I believe to be a factual drama. I mean, it is, I worked a lot at the BBC in my youth, and I made a lot of documentaries. So I've been very strict about what we dramatize and what we exclude in terms of conjecture or whatever. But I do think what Abdullah has given us is the poetry of the film, the poetry, because it is poetry in the sense that it is compressed meaning, and that is absolutely it's a gift beyond measure.
I mean, I like what you're saying and the questions that you raise in this conversation for primarily a few reasons. And when you talk about this being a very timely moment to be talking about this and looking at a film like this, my question is also about, I have a sense, and I stand corrected, that we haven't been able to articulate in a rounded fashion the people that we are, the music. I was telling somebody that I didn't know it was jazz when I was listening to Man and Bag or any other thing. It was music that at Christmas Day, when my parents say, "Please dance to us, you're wearing your new clothes," I knew that song. I would hum and sing along with it, whether it's Victor Ndlaziluane or anyone like that. And that, the understanding of jazz in the context of just being brought up in an environment like this is something so natural in us. And I've never seen this being a beacon of positioning this country, brand South Africa, in terms of its gift of music, brand South Africa in terms of its special story that links to the music and the art and the people, if anything, And I find myself, in fact, chasing a dream, a dream of, International Jazz Day for me represents an opportunity to position South Africa neck to neck with its competitors. There are countries that are associated with jazz, be it Cuba, be it even Japan, or any, and we don't have that. And I'm asking from you, for example, is it right to say that South Africa deserves to enjoy a position as being a notable jazz destination, or contributing to the idiom of jazz and its history?
Well, the whole world knows it,
except us.
Yeah. The whole world knows it, except us. I travel all over the world. When I started off music, I was intrigued and still intrigued with the traditional music of this country. It's quite unbelievable. Music from Sotho, Tswana,
Venda, Bedi, yes.
And I've always been to our musicians here that we should like people do everywhere else, is that we should look into our tradition, because there are a lot of lessons to be learned there. But we have this, I think sometimes also it's a class thing, because we think that traditional music and traditional musicians are not, they're not sophisticated enough. You know the story. So a few years ago, about 3 years ago, my band from New York were on tour, Akaya. And they're all masters and master degrees in music. They play with the Ellington Band and the Basie Band. So for years I've been saying to our musicians here, let's look at playing our traditional music. That happened with Manenberg. Because I've been trying to get our musicians to play the traditional music. They will also tell you that they refuse to play it. Until Manenberg, they realized what was going on. You see? So I took my musicians, it was about 2 years ago, I took them to Kimberley. And I set up about 20 traditional groups. We're working on this project. How can we disseminate this information, to people and make people aware of what this music is? Because the traditional music is very complex. Contrary to the idea, it's very simple, because I play some of the traditional music with my musicians in New York, and they struggle. They struggle with it because it's complex. Yeah. So when I had in Kimberley with these traditional groups, my musicians, my drummer was writing down. He said, "Now that old lady, what is she dancing?" He said, 7 or is it 9 or is it 12? He was writing down. They never experienced it. Even up till today, they speak about it. They speak about it, yeah. And then I realized, I said, but why in India do we have such a high level of people skilled in high tech? It requires a lot of knowledge or understanding or perception or understanding of high tech. And then I said, wait a minute. Then I look at the music, the Indian music. It's very complex, right? It's very, very complex. But you grow up with this as a child, with this complexity, the complexity of the music. So and dealing with that complexity in the music, then you can deal with complex issues elsewhere.
Which is what makes me happy that the material that you're talking about is being taken to the schools, and that naturally, because one of my fellow protagonists is the whole fight about art education in schools. Somebody was saying the reason why the Germans are so ahead technologically, or the Japanese, is because art is part of their curriculum. And it therefore makes them be able to resolve complex issues and theories, and which is a big argument, I think. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Mandela's Gun, and the fact that I just wanted to know to also talk about the after the release here at the Jozi Film Festival. What is the big plan? Is this an international release?
We certainly intended to be an international release. Yes, I think the film will appeal to a very an international audience. I mean, I set out to do that. I mean, I made a lot of feature films for studios and independents. And I think it's a great story. It's an unfamiliar story with a world, a figurehead, but it's an unfamiliar story about somebody that a lot of people think they know quite a lot about. We're going to show them. Well, and I think the unfamiliar aspects of it are exciting, and the way we've shot it as a political thriller almost. I mean, there's a sense of unease, menace, sense of danger, and I haven't exaggerated it, but certainly it is part of the story, and I think it's, as I say, it's universal. Also, I think the contemporary meaning of the film applies, particularly. I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with me if one looks at the turmoil in America at the moment, and how race relations there are degenerating, and how ugly they've become. I think a film like this is is very significant.
Yeah.
And actually, I hope it'll give people watching it time to reflect on the nature of racism and violence. It's a complex. It is a complex film, but I think we've told it in a very direct way, which I don't think it's good. It will appeal both, I think, intellectually and viscerally to a wide audience.
I'm happy to hear that. I mean, speaking about racial tensions and all that, it brings me to, I get a sense that there was I know, for example, Moroba Nkao is a young producer, and one of the leads is Tumiso Masha. I see a young legion of film professionals involved in this, and also I think a racially integrated crew.
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Which is really how we need to start doing and seeing things, right? Because we can never overcome where we've been if we don't see ourselves as a collective. And in your observation as leading this team, the learning these things as they happen for these young actors and these young producers, would you have a sense of what this did to them? Did it open up their interest in doing this kind of filmmaking? As in,
I think the crew was committed, dedicated. I think they were intrigued by the revelations. As I say, a lot of the story was unfamiliar. I think the way we treated the story with so much respect, encouraged them. I remember we were filming at Lily's Leaf. Our set, we built a Lily's Leaf.
Oh, okay.
And dramatized the events there, the arrest, and also the planning of Operation Mayabuya. And we were filming there when Matiba, he died, and I thought no one would show up on the morning, and I was quite prepared to write the day off because the sense of the sense of being so bereft, and the crew and the cast were naturally very, 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 very. Well, I think they felt damaged in some way. That something.
One can imagine. I mean,
something had been something so important had been taken away from them. Anyway, what happened is that the entire crew, everyone showed up, and it was very moving because I got the crew and the cast to form a circle and invited everybody to say something they wanted, if they felt that they didn't have to. It wasn't a command. But if they felt that they wanted to say something about Matiba, then this was an opportunity to share it with the rest of the crew. And it was a very, very moving moment. And then after about an hour, a couple of hours, we went back to work. And it was extraordinary.
Beautiful.
Extraordinary moment.
Poignant. You tune to Kai FM, home of the Afropolitan. We're talking the Jozi Film Festival. In particular, we're talking Mandela's Gun. And it is a visit to places that we haven't been before. And for some, probably, stirring emotions, maybe, of the past. And in particular, I talk about Abdullah Ibrahim and his work on the soundtrack. And having, being traveling the world, touring, coming from South Africa, having seen and experienced its history. This kind of film, dignifying a story and a narrative. Would you agree? It's one of those that have addressed what.
I think sometimes we are not really aware of the universal impact. That Mandela and our struggle had on the rest of the world. Unfortunately, I travel everywhere in the world. And everywhere I go, there is this respect. And almost we're taking the world through a learning experience. A learning that in spite of everything that we had gone through, there's no massive retaliation. It's an object lesson. I was this understanding of how could you, after all of this, still have this resilience. We would have. You see. I studied Budo in Japan over 50 years with Japanese people, and I'm always amazed when I'm there about how they, how they view what we are doing, because it's an object lesson for them to explain with Japanese what they've gone through, and people everywhere in the world. My fiancée is from Germany. Her family went through the horrors of the Second World War. Okay. And a few years ago, some years ago, I played a concert in a town I can't remember, in Italy, and people were watching television. So this was after the concert, you see. So they went for dinner, this Italian restaurant. People were sitting around, and came on the screen a speech by Mandela, and I was amazed. The people got up and toasted.
Wow. Wow.
The people toasted Mandela, and I was sitting there saying, "Get up, get up." Get up. Oh yeah. That's spontaneously.
Sure.
And I said, well, so Mandela's Gun, the film. I mean, I know people everywhere in the world, when I tell them about the John's film and the story and narrative behind it, they're so anxious to see it, because it means it's timely, not just for South Africa,
for the world.
yeah, but universally.
Wow. I'm so glad to be South African right now. Thanks to both of you. A brilliant project. We appreciate you having come here and on the way we started. Ladies and gentlemen, that was John Irvin and Abdullah Ibrahim. We're talking Mandela's Gun. Please make a date with the film. Look out for the program on the Jozi Film Festival, and do yourself a favor and be inspired. Go and watch the movie. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.